Suze!
Idiots! Bloody amateurs!
Come on, get in the car, quick! Suze!
Get off me! Let me down!
Come on, get him in, get him in! Go, 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 go!
Don't worry, Suze.
Get our boy back. Get our boy.
Suze! Susie! Ah!
Welcome to GameSpot Live. I'm Greg Kasavin, here to tell you all about the Getaway for the PS2. This game's been years in the making and apparently cost a fortune to develop, and has had a lot of people really excited since it looks like this really gritty, urban kind of crime saga in a similar vein to the very popular Grand Theft Auto games. Actually, the Getaway's similarity to Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto Vice City is almost entirely superficial. It's true that all these games are these sort of modern-themed crime games involving both driving and third-person shooting sequences, and they take place in kind of realistic-looking modern-day cities and feature kind of lots of police officers and lots of innocents getting caught in the line of fire. But other than those things, the Getaway really is its own game, having much more in common with last year's Mafia for the PC, in that it's a linear game. It's very story-driven. You do what you're told, quite literally, in most all the game's missions, and you follow the story as it's supposed to go. There isn't really an opportunity to go out and do whatever you want, drive wherever you want, and so forth. Nevertheless, the Getaway does faithfully and impressively recreate what appears like the entirety of London, which you'll get to drive all around. The game's depiction of the city of London is rather superficial. You can't really go into most of the buildings, and you can't really get even close to a lot of them. You're stuck kind of at ground level, and the pedestrians don't really do anything except get run over and sometimes make meager attempts to get out of your way. So really, this sense that you're racing through a facade of London kind of pervades all of the Getaway, a game that looks really impressive, but as you play more and more of it, starts to kind of fall apart. It seems one of the driving principles in the design of the Getaway was just to make it really, really cinematic. The problem is the designers really sacrificed a lot of the gameplay in their efforts just to make this thing look like a movie. The good news is they succeeded in that part. The game does look really, really good. A lot of the character models and animations are really impressive, and the game has great-looking, realistic textures, and you'll often think that you really, it really does look like you're driving around the streets of London there, especially since all the cars on the road are real too. You'll see cars from makes like Lexus and Saab and Daihatsu and all sorts of car manufacturers that you don't often see in games. Also, the strange thing that the designers did was that they did away with all the typical iconography that you find in games, all things like life meters and compasses and ammunition readouts, all kinds of stuff like that. You don't see any of it. It's just like when you're watching a movie or something, you just see the characters on the screen and you see the and you see the environment, and that's all you ever see in the Getaway. Now, you may be wondering, how can you tell, things like where you're supposed to go and how hurt you are and so forth that these important indicators normally tell you in games? Well, the game has different solutions to all these problems. One is that when you're driving and when you're supposed to get somewhere, you don't have access to any kind of map. You have really no idea as to how far away your destination is or exactly where you're supposed to go. But you'll see that your car automatically turns on its blinkers to tell you whether you should be heading more toward the left or to the right. This seems clever at first, but the more you play and as you get your cops chasing after you and stuff like that, this starts to become more and more ridiculous. Why would you possibly be hightailing it away from the cops while signaling in the direction that you're going to go in next? Normally you could make fun of just about any game about things it doesn't do realistically, but the Getaway just opens itself way up to criticisms like this because it, sort of pretentiously tries to defy conventions. They go, we're not going to give you a map, we're going to use the car's blinkers, and well, that's not really a good solution to a problem that wasn't even really a problem. Another really strange aspect to the design of the Getaway is how you recover your health in the shooting missions. Normally these sequences play out a little something like, the shooting parts of Grand Theft Auto 3 or a little like Max Payne, only the controls are really clunky and there's an auto-aim feature that takes pretty much all the challenge out of the shooting. But as you take damage, you'll notice that you start to kind of limp worse and worse, and soon enough you can hardly even move. Fine, that's all realistic. I'm sure getting shot seriously prevents you from being more active in a gunfight. But the designers must have realized that, getting shot sort of gets in the way of these action sequences being much fun, so they implement a way for you to recover your health. That method isn't by, eating turkey legs or anything like that. It's by resting against a wall. You'll see the guy kind of panting up against a wall, and soon enough the blood magically disappears from off of his clothing, and it's all good, like nothing ever happened. Again, this is just patently absurd. It's no more realistic than what any game tries to do in terms of letting you restore your health mid-mission, and it just comes across as silly. There's also just a pervasive sense that the game wasn't quite ready before it shipped. It just you'll see lots of weird graphical glitches, like people clipping through walls and cars clipping through the environments, glitches with the audio. All kinds of weird little things stick out and again stand in stark contrast to the generally impressive visual production. As for the story of the game, it tries really hard to emulate sort of the gritty contemporary style of Guy Ritchie's movies like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and Snatch, but it really lacks the irony and the humor that makes those movies so appealing to people. The story is really just cold and ruthless and filled with entirely unsympathetic characters. The story isn't plausible. That's not to say it's horrible. It's certainly presented more impressively than most games would even dare to try. But for a game that tries so hard to be a movie more so than a game, it's disappointing that the movie itself isn't necessarily that great. If you really want to see a movie, you could watch either of the movies I mentioned instead, and probably have a better time than you would playing The Getaway. This game stands as a very clear indication that gaming itself has matured. The game is filled with really grisly but rather realistic violence and a lot of tons and tons of profanity, I should say. More profanity than you could shake a stick at. The dialogue seems pretty spot on. It is like something you'd sooner see in a movie than in a game, so it's pretty impressive. But it doesn't make for a game that you'd hand to your younger brother or sister by any means. This game definitely more than warrants its M rating, and if you thought Grand Theft Auto 3 had a lot of naughty stuff in there, just wait till you see this. There's every reason to believe that this game will occupy its own small space kind of in the annals of gaming history as one of these games that tried desperately hard to be a movie rather than a game. It does so at the detriment of its gameplay. It definitely suffers for the sake of its presentation, making it so that the driving and shooting sequences in The Getaway really aren't as fun as they could have been. But the game is still cool to look at, occasionally fun to play, and pretty unique for what it is. So The Getaway definitely has its good points. You could tell that a lot of effort really went into certain parts of this game, and certain parts of it did come out really well. And at times, both the driving and the shooting sequences can be quite fun, especially when one kind of promptly leads into the other. On the other hand, all too often you'll be restarting missions for reasons you didn't want to be restarting them for. All kinds of awkward things get in the way. You can't skip the cutscenes, so should you ever quit the game and come back to a mission, you'll be forced to sit through several minutes of cussing all over again. It's rather ironic that this game's desperate attempts to make you feel like you're watching a movie instead of playing a game just serve to reinforce the fact that you're just playing a game with a lot of problems. Other games manage to suspend your disbelief much better than this game does. But games like The Getaway really don't come around often, so if you're curious about it, by all means, give it a look.